have the time to listen to me whine about nothing.
Hi, I'm anarchist prisoner Sean Swain.
And I am your humble chief, joining you once again. Episode 3.
Anarcology, a liberatory approach to confronting trauma, stress, and burnout in the civilized world. Quick question before we get started. Have you ever been to Canada? Happy New Year.
Yes, I have.
Uh-huh. So,
we went over to Winnipeg through Michigan. Drove right across.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I grew up just north of Detroit. So we went on a field trip to from Michigan to Canada when I was 12. And I bought a boomerang for $12. Just a heads up, if you're ever in Canada, don't buy a boomerang. You would think that Canadians and Australians, both being part of the United Kingdom, that they would talk about things like how to construct a boomerang, but they don't. I bought a boomerang. I spent hours just wandering around a field. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I spent hours wandering around a field throwing this thing. You know what you call a boomerang that doesn't come back?
A stick.
So I wrote Justin Trudeau, who is the leader of the Canadian government. I'm looking for a $12 refund, and I haven't heard back. I'll keep you posted. I'll let you know what's going on.
Yeah, let me know.
But yeah,
let us know.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there before we get started. Yeah, before we get started, I just wanted to put that out there.
So now, did Justin
Trudeau
get a special portrait on his envelope?
Who? Oh, Justin Trudeau. Yeah, he's got a nice beard. I think maybe he should. He's got a really, really nice beard. I mean, particularly for a world leader. So today's topic is the beginning of an analytical deconstruction, which is a complicated way to say that we're going to begin looking at things that we've always accepted, and we're going to look at them in a new way. In previous episodes, we called into question whether the existing social science paradigms and their institutions are really there for serving us and our well-being, or whether they're there for society's well-being, to keep you from being a problem rather than to keep you happy and joyful in the experience of your life. To that, I would suggest that if they have you, on one hand, happy and disruptive to social order, or on the other hand, miserable but compliant, they'd settle for you being miserable and compliant. So if you feel like you're living a life of miserable compliance, perhaps you are. In the second episode, last week, we dealt with the question of identity, who we think we are, and how most of the ways we think of ourselves are at least somewhat inadequate. That we're each of us a collection of experiences, and that these experiences shape us and inform us as we live our lives. Now, in this episode, we get to the fun part. In this episode and in the 3 that follow, we start discussing forces that traumatized us, maybe in ways that we never even thought of as trauma. Next week, we talk about school and how school fucked us up, and then capitalism and how that fucks us up, and then democracy, spelled with a D-U-H, and government, and how that fucks us up. But this week, the trauma we focus on is something that fucks us up before we ever even get to school. It's an event that we all experience, and it's so powerful that it controls our behavior for the rest of our lives, even though we might not even remember it happening. So let me ask you, what is your earliest memory?
So in Columbus, they have a restaurant called Gingy's. They used to, at least. It was a hibachi-style Japanese steakhouse. And they got a big flat-top grill, and the guys come out, and the chefs all wear different colors, and, you know, they light the shrimp on fire, and they flip it into the volcano of onions, and they do all the So we were at Gingy's. I think I was maybe like close to 2 years old, and couldn't understand why this shiny piece of metal would cook food. Couldn't put it together. And so, like, my dad was like, "Don't touch that. Nothing is hot. Do not touch that flat top. Like, it is hot. Don't touch it." I said, "Don't touch it. It's hot." I touched it.
Of course you did.
And I burnt the fuck out of my hand, and I was just fucking colicky the rest of the entire evening. And the thing about the Japanese steakhouse is, in their culture, they sit you with strangers. So they usually serve between 8 and 10 people at a time. And so if you're a party of 2, you could end up with 6 complete strangers. And if you're a party of 6, you could end up with 2 complete strangers. So there was like that whole weird social interaction aspect of it, and it was like, so yeah, that's like about like one of the first.
Okay. Yeah, my oldest memory, I think I was about the same age. I was about 2, and my dad was holding me. My mom was on the phone talking to somebody, so my dad was holding me in the kitchen. And on the wall, my mom had this Pillsbury Doughboy ceramic hanging on the wall. And I was trying like hell to get to that thing. I was, giving my dad some elbows and stretching out. And my dad, I'm like a monkey in his arms. He's trying to keep me away from that. That's my first memory, is me trying to get to this ceramic of the Pillsbury Doughboy. I was probably 2.
Had to have it.
I don't remember wearing diapers, but I know that I did because my mom took a gazillion embarrassing photos. So I know there was a time that I wore diapers, and then I didn't. I experienced the same process we all experience as we are transformed into domesticated humans. And that process is called potty training. We all went through it. Do you remember potty training? Do you remember it?
Yes, I do.
Really?
PP
you
in
remember?
The potty is how we, yep.
Uh-huh.
Because it was traumatizing because I didn't understand where it went. Didn't understand how, like, where does it go?
Right.
Is
Very
it coming
confusing.
back? How am I going to know which one's mine? Is there going to be some sort of claiming process? Like,
wow, you were really overthinking your potty training.
I mean, I just was confused about the conclusion. I just needed to know how it ended. Like, that's just all.
Right. Yeah. And I guess we just never know. We just never know. It just goes.
Right,
and it keeps on going.
You could have to. You could have to answer for every time you've ever squatted. People have kept track of weirder things in this world. I'm just saying. I'm just putting that out there.
Well, it seems that you're still
has measured different things of people's interaction with the world.
So when was the last time you ever thought about your potty training? When was the last time you said, you know what, potty training?
Kind of I guess it's, well, so I just talked to a lady yesterday who owns a kennel, a puppy kennel. And so, but before talking to her, it's been a while.
Have you ever thought about the experience of potty training
I talked about
as trauma? Have you ever thought about it as trauma? Okay.
I mean, I guess I could say, like, I can look at it and say, like, I could see how, but, I mean, I think that it would have to involve some sort of irrational phobia of, like, porcelain or, a weird thing like that. I know. This probably feels weird, having a serious conversation and exploring the vast implications of potty training, right? But
think about this.
Right. Yeah.
And we're back from a break. This is we're exploring the vast implications of potty training. So think about this. Think about how pivotal it is in a domesticated world, in a society full of other people, how crucial it is that we have muscular control to stop our body waste from falling into our pants. This isn't inconsequential. In fact, of all of the struggles we undertake in our lifetime, nothing is probably more consequential to our success as social beings than our struggle to control our bowels. This is the first and maybe most important challenge that ever confronts us. So let's take a look at it from the flip side for a moment. Let's imagine a world where nobody ever thought up potty training. It's a world where everyone, kids, adults, everyone, just soils themselves wherever they are. Everyone just shits their pants. Let's not even talk about the smell, but let's focus on the disruption to the larger societal machinery. Nothing could function. Think about the spread of bacteria and disease, the constant sickness, the lack of sanitation. Nothing could ever get done. We wouldn't put an astronaut on the moon. Hell, we wouldn't be able to tolerate a taxi ride across town. All of our processes for production and distribution and consumption would be vast networks for the spread of germs. I can't imagine the human population being very big. I mean, there's nothing very arousing about your love interest caked in their own dried body waste, removing their clothes for a hot night of genital friction, you know? It would be a stinky, unsanitary world of piles and puddles. So if we think about it like that, society hinges upon having potty training of some kind, but not just for you or just for me, but for everyone. A uniform program where the entire population is regimented, knowing their primary duty is not to duty. So that's the macro. On the micro side, this is each of our first serious struggles. Everything hangs in the balance for us. In our little toddler minds, this is the make or break. It's the three-pointer at the buzzer. It's the battle to end all battles. We have to prove ourselves worthy of being accepted by our family, by our loved ones, and our parents. Failure is not an option. Probably, we have the sense that if we fail at potty training, we get sent away, or our parents put us on a rock to let the birds and the dogs eat us like we're in Sparta, or whatever. We just know that failure equals societal death, however our toddler minds can conceive of finality. Talk about pressure. Huh? How would that feel?
Not to mention that for a lot of times you can't even send your kids to preschool or like daycare if they are not potty trained yet.
Yeah. It's a societal demand. Yeah. This is some serious shit. That means two things. So on a personal level, this is a monumental moment, right? This struggle to control those very particular muscles, because this is the beginning of our domestication. A transformation from wild little useless savages pooping in the bushes into useful little domesticated understudies. It's a necessary first step. We come out of the process someone different from the person who went in. We cease being babies and become children. So in that sense, potty training is like a rite of passage. But it's more than that. It's also serious fucking trauma. And that trauma stays with us for life and influences how we see ourselves and the world long after we've even forgotten the experience. And I can prove it to you. Ready? Shit your pants. I bet you can't, even if you wanted to. I mean, I'm guessing that you don't want to, but even if you wanted to, you can't. Better yet, imagine this. A bad guy has a gun to your head. No, he's got an automatic weapon pointed at everyone you love, and his demand is that you shit your pants. Can you do it? I'd put my money on you not being able to shit your pants. Even in a situation where shitting your pants provides a better outcome than not shitting your pants. Even in a situation where your life might even hang in the balance. So check this out. There was an experimental study. It might have been, I think, at Cornell, and it happened before 1989 because I learned about this in a lecture from Dr. Mruck at BGSU in 1989. He devoted an entire class period to this. Anyway, some shrinks at a university needed college students for a study, and they got a lot of volunteers. The students would get paid a small stipend and would get all the food and drink they could handle. And the only requirement was they each had to urinate and defecate before leaving. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? So all these college kids come in and they take the $20 or whatever and stuff their faces with pizza and beer and tacos and wine or whatever. And at the end of the night, they're like, where's the bathroom? And see, that's the catch. There is no bathroom. They have to release their bladders and bowels right where they sit. They had to shit their pants. I imagine this is probably the moment where many of those college kids felt less enthusiastic about participating in that study. Just saying. And a quick sidebar, just for clarification. Those shrinks weren't just being sadistic. They didn't have a poop fetish. They were testing a theory about the power of indoctrination, how we are all influenced by indoctrination, and in this case, potty training. The shrinks expected that most students would balk at first and then begrudgingly comply. But what really happened over and over in several replications of the study really exceeded their expectations. Many of the students couldn't do it. In fact, in subsequent experiments, they had to have doctors on site in order to monitor students because they would actually be on the brink of rupturing their internal organs and still wouldn't shit their pants. They couldn't do it. So think about this from a perspective of a logical, rational mind. This choice that confronted those students. If they comply and shit their pants, what happens? The sky doesn't fall, the world doesn't end, cats and dogs don't resort to interspecies fornication. What they end up with is about an hour of nuisance, washing out clothes in a tub, tossing them in a washer, getting a shower, cleaning the tub. Minor annoyance at best. But if they don't comply, if they don't shit their pants, they face the very real prospect of serious permanent harm, or even death. A whole lot of excruciating pain and suffering. Think about that. And what's true about those college kids is true about us. We are so indoctrinated, so conditioned, so programmed, we can't make a free will choice to save our lives. We can't do it. And so let's get back to potty training. Our parents who love us and want us to be our best selves, in a sincere effort to shape us into swivelized humans, so utterly fucked us up that we can't make a free will choice to shit our pants. We can't exercise moral agency to preserve our very lives because we're paralyzed by overwhelming fear and guilt and shame about a behavior that would disappoint our parents when we were 2 years old. Now, even though we can't remember potty training, well, you can. I don't remember mine. But even if we can't remember our potty training and we don't recall what it felt like, what we can do is work backward from the result. We can see how powerfully we are controlled by the idea of shitting our pants and by the unconscious implications. That we can imagine what that process was like, the sense of shame and humiliation, the guilt and the failure that were instilled in our 2-year-old minds. So powerful and overwhelming were those emotions, and all of them traumatic, that the programming sticks in adulthood long after we've even forgotten the experiences. So however necessary it might have been, potty training might have been, it represents our original trauma. The installation of guilt and shame and humiliation, hardwiring us in order to get a desired outcome, in order to get predictable behavior out of us through trauma. But if we look at it in wider context, we can see this event as a beginning. This is not a singular event. Civilization makes demands of our entire lives. And once that guilt and shame and humiliation hardwiring is installed, civilization continues to hit that same red button during the course of our entire lives, demanding our obedience, our attendance, our participation, our conformity, or else. Guilt, shame, humiliation, fear. I would suggest that one of the powerful unconscious lessons that we learn at potty training, a lesson that will be confirmed again and again throughout our lives, is mind over matter. The system doesn't mind, and we don't matter. That is, society has certain expectations, non-negotiable demands. You meet them, or else. Until potty training, we're happy little savages running wild and pooping in the bushes. But at potty training, we learn that our happiness takes a back seat to more important objectives, even if we don't know what they are. Society has to crack the proverbial egg to make an omelet, and we get conditioned to the idea that sometimes we're that egg. So yeah, I've got about a page and a half more of my crap. So we'll take a quick break here, and we'll be right back with the conclusion of this particular episode. Stay with us. And so we're back from break, and we're talking about how potty training has fucked us up. And so I would suggest that one of the principal lessons we learn is that our happiness is secondary to societal needs. We learn that happiness is a privilege. We learn that the larger system does not serve us. We serve it. Again, mind over matter. The system doesn't mind and we don't matter. We learn this at potty training at the inception of our own domestication, when the people who infinitely love us more than the world cause us to feel terrible things in order to shape us into what society needs us to be. And, more importantly, we accept it. Possibly for the rest of our lives without question. So we end up believing our own happiness is really irrelevant. That's a sad state of affairs. So again, if you feel like you're living a life of miserable compliances, maybe you are. But if you feel like you're chasing validation and love and approval and meaning and accomplishment, and that the price of that is always fear, shame, guilt, and humiliation, or pain and trauma, maybe there's a reason for that. So yeah, for our purposes, an analytical deconstruction from an anarchological perspective, we want to understand how this trauma impacts our freedom. And really, this serves as a kind of analogy, and it serves us well as we explore the other trauma and the other systems that have inflicted it, including the topic of next week's episode, the educational feedlot, that discusses how schools traumatize us. And yeah, I guess that brings us to a close. We hope you're still listening, and we hope you tune in next week.